It's Seeing Red on the North American Soccer Network, NASN.TV and NASNradio.com. Mark Fishkin, Dave Martinez here, and we're very pleased to welcome for the first time the latest and greatest goalkeeper of the New York Red Bulls, Luis Robles. Luis, of course, racked up his first clean sheet with New York in the scoreless draw with Kansas City. Welcome to Seeing Red. Luis, how are you tonight?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, guys.
Now,
It
Mark, if I could please, usually we have a format here, Luis, where Mark would usually start off the questioning, but I have to just clear something up here. I've been getting murdered on the show for probably the past 2 months because I mispronounced your name just a little bit. Could you please tell everybody that it's quite common for people to every now and again call you Robles, please? Please?
Well, it depends on whose interpretation, because if you watch the keel cam, it's Robles. So it's my dad's from Puerto Rico, so it's Luis Robles. But I mean, really, I've heard so many different variations of it. Doesn't even faze me anymore. It's not a big deal.
As long as they call you, right, Luis? That's all that matters.
Yeah, that sounds good. I'll go with that.
Let's start with Saturday night. Obviously, very strong in goal. You had a really great defensive effort in front of you. What was your takeaways from the game?
I was really pleased with how the night went. Not only getting the result, but just the way the guys played. I think, as Hans said today before training, they broke it down into some key statistics, and the one thing that was really evident was just the work rate. As far as intense sprints, they tracked that our team just dominated or had an overwhelming statistic versus Kansas City. And I think that's the right mentality, is if we go into every game with the idea that we're going to work harder than the other team, I think then our skill will take over, because we definitely have a talented team. We have a deep team. And if we're willing to put in the work, then I think a team that's very dangerous.
Now, beginning of the season, they had Ryan Meara in net, and he really took ownership of the back. When he fell, Bill Gaudette came in, and it was a trial by fire for him. Got shellacked with a bunch of shots, but stood tall. Your introduction's a bit different, however. It seems like you've been challenged very little and have been getting a lot of help from your defense. What has the experience been like for you? And for a game like Kansas City, I mean, there was only one, a tremendous save of the week candidate of a shot that went your way, but are you surprised at the fact that you haven't really quite been as challenged as you may have expected?
Surprised, definitely not. I think we have a lot of good defenders. I think Hans's big challenge for the season was really finding which buttons to press, and I think from my understanding, he was really pleased with what he put onto his field last weekend, and I think the result is evident of that because it spoke for itself. We definitely have a lot of quality back there, and if we can put it together, we have a very formidable defense. But as far as comparing it to Ryan's experience and Bill's experience, those experiences may be different, but nonetheless, I think they would be pleased looking across the board with the defenders that they have.
Luis, I want to take a little bit of a step back and talk about your background. MLS came into being when you were all of 12 years old. You're from Arizona, played your college ball in Portland, and then immediately, even though you were drafted, you took off to Europe. Tell us about your impressions of MLS as you were going through college and your decision to try to hop to Europe to start your career.
I think for the most part, when I was in college, my impression was just like most college soccer players. There was just this idea that everyone has this dream, they want to go abroad, that MLS isn't there yet, it's not on the soccer landscape, and that the quality isn't there. So I kind of just drank that Kool-Aid for my college tenure. So when I had the opportunity to go and live out my European dream, that was something I hopped on right away. But after a couple of years, I think it was when I got called into the national team, and I played with some of the guys from the MLS, I was just really surprised how they compared technically to some of the players I was playing with in Germany. I thought they were very sound, and they handled the ball well, not only technically, but their tactical minds were just as good as the guys I was playing with. So from that moment on, I actually started to track a lot that was going on in the States. And what was also really exciting is to see them adding teams, creating that northwest rivalry, especially coming from Portland. it was always exciting to see a team in Portland, knowing that there would be a natural rivalry between Seattle and Vancouver, which they've done a good job marketing. But I think just in the last 5 years as a professional, the landscape has changed. I think they've invested a lot into the MLS, and the product that has come out is phenomenal. I know coming into the league just a couple months ago, there was an excitement to be here. It wasn't necessarily, oh, you're coming back to America just to play in America. No, it was, you're coming back to play in a quality league. And so when the opportunity did come up for us to come back to the MLS, it wasn't anything that my wife and I thought, oh, here's a drop off. If anything, we were probably more excited because not only were we going to be in our home country, but it was going to be a fantastic experience. And it's definitely lived up to it, if not more, since we've been here.
Luis, the waning years of your Bundesliga time, it was a bit difficult for you, seeing a lot of bench time or what have you. And you came so close to signing with the Red Bulls in the beginning of the year, but of course the bureaucracy of Major League Soccer got in the way. Can you tell us a little bit about that moment in your life? Was there a certain frustration that you felt not being able to make the move in the beginning of the season, as opposed to when you finally did make it onto the team?
To just take that moment and say that was frustrating would really be an understatement. There's so many things going on in my life in the last 2 to 3 years that just, I mean, my wife and I for the last 2 to 3 years were thinking, okay, it can only get better, and for some reason, every couple of months something new would happen, and it just continued to go lower and lower and lower to the point where when Red Bull did come around in January, we thought, okay, maybe we're coming out of the storm, maybe this is a lifeline that we can right the ship. And for it not to work out, to have the ticket, to have my bags packed, ready to fly into New York, and then find out that I wasn't going to be able to join the team because of the technicality, I think it was just, it was not only difficult to handle, but it just continued to be the theme of our life. We really struggled for a couple of years, not only in our professional life, but in our private lives. We lost a child during that time. Her dad was battling cancer, and it still is battling cancer. And there are just so many little things that were coming up, and we just thought, okay, sooner or later it's got to get better. And when we weren't able to join the team, I think it was just like, okay, well, just add another one to the list. And so what I'm saying in the end is, as difficult it was not to join the MLS, it was just even more difficult because of all the other things, all the other circumstances surrounding it. We really wanted to get back because of the cancer that I was fighting, and even that didn't seem to work out. And so we just were wondering, Lord, like, what's going on here? Where are you taking us? And it was difficult for sure.
You know, that's an amazing story. I don't even know if that's ever been made public with anybody surrounding this team. Was there a time and place where you and your wife were actually discussing whether or not you should continue with your career?
It wasn't that long ago, actually. So let's see. The timeline, to be as accurate as possible, is in June, when the contract was in Germany. We looked like we were going to come back, especially with her dad going through chemo and radiation. Also, my dad, he's getting older. I mean, he's past 80 now. He wasn't going to come to Europe anymore for the trips. So we just thought, logically, we should go back to the States. And so that's when my agent called the MLS, and right from the get-go, there was interest from several teams. So we thought, okay, we'll start moving our stuff back, and that's what we did. We moved our stuff back in July, acting in good faith that it was going to work out, because it seemed like the MLS talks were very not interesting, but aggressive. And so it was July the 4th, how patriotic, July the 4th, we moved back to the United States. And we basically sent all our stuff to our parents, and we sat there and waited with the idea that in a couple of days we would go through whatever process was necessary to sign a contract, and I'd join one of the teams that was talking to us. But a couple of days turned to a couple of weeks, and my wife at the time was 7 months pregnant. Coming from Germany, we didn't have any health insurance in America, so I just looked for any sort of part-time job I could find, and that's when I have a friend who's a realtor, and he needed some temporary assistance. So we thought, okay, hop in here. I work this job. We apply for state insurance, and hopefully we get the best. No, thinking that sooner or later we're going to join a team here. But in those 2 weeks that I was working that job, not only did we get denied state insurance, but all the talks with the MLS actually came to a halt. So nothing was happening.
Wow.
And I'd call my agent. He'd say, I'm waiting for a phone call. He never got a phone call. And so 3 weeks went by, 4 weeks went by, and it was the end of July now. So we'd been in America for close to a month. I'd been working in this office, and I thought, hey, you know, I got a degree. I have work experience. Maybe it's time for me to move on. And these are the conversations I had with my wife and with my in-laws and with my mom and dad. And said, maybe it's just time to move on. Maybe it's, you know, maybe the Lord brought us back here for a reason, and maybe soccer's finished. And so at that moment, I really thought it was done. In my heart, because of, I guess, working in that office 8 to 5, I just had all this time to think about my future, that I was already convinced that I was ready to move on. That if the door was closed, I wasn't bitter about it. I wasn't resentful about it. I was at peace to move on. And my wife basically said, and my parents urged me to just call MLS yourself. Like, I know that you trust your agent, and we're not suggesting that he's doing anything foul, but just have a conversation and figure out why it is the way it is. And so that's probably when I had my first conversation with the MLS. It was August 1st. It was my brother's birthday. And it went better than expected. And a couple of days later, they offered me a deal. We negotiated in the next couple of days. And they said, okay, on August 8th, we'll have your allocation. But even before that, all that happened, my wife just said, we'll just continue to pray about it, and we'll wait till my sister. She gave the deadline. She said, on August 11th, when my sister gets married, if we don't have anything, I'll permit you to go do something else. I mean, this is my wife, and she's about to burst here, and she's not worried at all. I mean, she just had a lot of faith in what the Lord was doing in her life, and she had a lot of faith in what I was doing, that I could provide for the family regardless. And I think that speaks volumes about her character and her trust. But we waited, and on August 8th, when it came to allocation day, there were a few teams on the radar because they're the ones making the phone calls. And the guy from MLS basically said, we'll let you know in a couple of hours who gets selected, because the allocation started at 12 p.m. Eastern time. And within like 5 minutes, he called and he said, you're going to New York. And I just
what was that like?
I was so surprised, only because I hadn't heard anything from New York since that last phone call where they said, we can't bring you in. You know, we have to go through this, and it's just going to be a really difficult process. We're not in that position right now to make that decision. And I said, okay, well, I thank you for your time. I respect your decision, and we parted ways. But we hadn't spoken since then, and I think that was January, February. I can't even remember exactly. But when they said, hey, you're going to New York, no one knew yet because I was the only one on the phone. So what I did is I just went online and I printed off the Red Bull logo, and I sat my family down and I said that, okay, you know, I've been selected, and they all waited, and I turned it around, and they were just as shocked. They were just as shocked because there were 4 or 5 teams that we speculated, because these were the ones that were making calls, and they'd spoken to my agent or they'd spoken to the MLS directly, and we just laughed. We just laughed because we just thought, this is how our life has gone the last 3 years. And we just thought, okay, maybe the storm is coming to an end. Maybe like we're going to start the next phase where things might actually start working out. And I always remember that moment, because it was just this collective sigh of relief. Okay, Luke has a job, but more than that, we have health insurance. His baby is going to be born under health insurance. And so we were excited. The Red Bull let us stay for the wedding, and then we flew out the next day and started our adventure in New York on August 12th.
Luis, that is absolutely an incredible story, and I think I can speak for the whole Red Bulls community in saying how glad we are that you're with us. It almost seems trivial after a story like that to turn the attention of our discussion to this weekend's match, but we kind of owe it to ourselves to do that. You're going to Philly. Absolutely. You're playing a team. It will be a hostile environment. Talk to us about your experience in rivalry games in college and in Germany, and how that might prepare you for 18,000 fans that even though they're not going to be in the playoff hunt, they would like nothing else than to knock New York down a peg.
I love rivalry games, especially in college. In college, I went to the University of Portland, so our two main rivals was Oregon State and UW. And the thing that we loved about Oregon State is we always were in a position to decide if they're going to the playoffs or not. And two out of the 4 years I was there, we had the opportunity to stop them from going to the playoffs while we were going to the playoffs. And then usually the first game that we ever had in the NCAA tournament was against UW. And so the natural thing that comes out of rivalries is kind of a little hostility towards them, regardless of who they are. They may be the greatest guys in the world, and you may go
sure, it doesn't matter
after the game. But going into that game, there's just this added emotion, and I think I love that more than anything. Now, playing in Germany, my first club, I played for a big-name club, FC Kaiserslautern, and we had some major rivalries there too, like crazy rivalries with Frankfurt and Karlsruhe, which eventually I actually went over and played for. And those are great too, because it's just a different feel. I think in college it was, because there isn't this fan following, there isn't so much a base there of supporters. It's just a team against a team. But the one thing that was different in the professional environment is that you're not just playing to go against this team. You're playing for your fan base. You're playing for your supporters. You're playing for your city. And I think that just adds a whole different element to it that is even more exciting to be in that arena playing for.
Is there anything special to you about going into Philadelphia itself, considering Major League Soccer has changed so much over the years, and Philadelphia is a rival of the team, but it's a growing rival, and it's as a regional competition between both cities. It's pretty historic. It's pretty well documented, the hatred that there is there. Is there anything in particular that you're looking forward to with this particular game coming up? And also, do you see yourself starting? Because there's a good chance Bill Gaudette may be back there again.
Yeah, I mean, as far as the last part, that's a decision the coach makes. My whole mindset going into this week is to prepare as if I was going to play. But at the end of the day, the coach makes the decision. So I respect whatever decision he makes. If I'm in goal, then I hope to help the team get the best result possible. If Bill's in goal, then I'll be on the bench supporting him, because Bill's a great guy. He's a great goalkeeper. I have a lot of respect towards him. But towards the game and respect towards the game, I think I'm excited about the game because we had such a good result on the weekend. I think that's a momentum builder. We went against a worthy foe. We played really well. We probably deserved to win, but we didn't get it. Nonetheless, we punched the playoffs with a tie. And defensively, we were sound. And if we can have that consistency and build on that into this game and replicate what we did this last weekend, that's a huge momentum builder going into the playoffs. So I think that's where I'm most excited, is to see what we can do, and if we continue to find that, or if we find that consistency going into the playoffs, I feel like our chances are as good as any.
Luis Robles wears number 31 for the New York Red Bulls. Luis, we wish you all the best on the field, off the field, with the child on the way, and we hope to speak with you soon. Thanks so much for joining us. Oh, the child's here.
The child's here, yeah. Yeah, it's just been FaceTime call after FaceTime call with family.
We once again have our live post-game show, seeingredny.com, and also NASN.TV immediately following the Philadelphia match. We'd like to thank Luis Robles for his unbelievable story about coming to MLS. And Dave, welcome back.
Thank you, sir.
And for Dave Martinez, I'm Mark Fishkin saying thank you so much for listening. Forza New York, and we'll talk to you Saturday afternoon.